He never looked at her, until he discovered another man desired her. Jealousy awakened something he thought impossible to feel. Where are you watching this story from? Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to see how this obsession ended. Eleanor's hand trembled as she unlocked Richard's phone for the third time that afternoon. She wasn't looking for infidelity. She was searching for something worse, proof that she still mattered. The flat was too quiet, the kind of silence that hurts your ears and tightens your chest. Outside, the London eye turned slowly against the March sky, but inside those 3,000 square feet of luxury, everything felt grey. Richard's calendar was empty on weekends, completely empty. Not even a dinner scheduled with her, not their wedding anniversary, which was 3 weeks away, 12 months, an entire year since they said "I do" in a ceremony too expensive and too hollow. Eleanor dropped the phone onto the Italian leather sofa as if it burned. She was 25 and felt like she'd already lived 100 years. She'd married Richard, thinking that at 42 he would give her security, maturity, presence. She received luxury, an unlimited credit card, and a loneliness that devoured her from within. The white walls of the flat reflected the afternoon light, but couldn't illuminate the emptiness growing inside her each day. The smell of imported Colombian coffee still hung in the air. Richard had left at 6 in the morning, as always. He'd return at 11 at night, as always. He'd kiss her forehead distractedly, ask, "Everything all right?" without waiting for an answer, and disappear into his study with his laptop glowing. Eleanor knew the choreography by heart. 12 months of empty movements. She walked to the panoramic window and pressed her forehead against the cold glass. The city seethed below, millions of people living, loving, fighting, existing. And she floated there on the 18th floor, an expensive porcelain doll stored on a shelf too high. Her reflection in the glass showed a beautiful woman with long chestnut hair and green eyes that used to sparkle. Now they seemed dim, like candles after the party. Eleanor touched her own face, as if she needed to confirm she was still real. Her phone rang. Sophie, her best friend. "Hello, Soph. Are you all right? Your voice sounds strange." Eleanor forced a laugh. "I'm fine, just tired." "Tired from what? You don't do anything." The phrase hurt more than Sophie imagined. It was true, Eleanor did nothing. She woke up, had breakfast alone, went to the gym, had lunch alone, watched series she didn't pay attention to, had dinner alone. When Richard arrived, she was already lying down, pretending to sleep to avoid another monosyllabic conversation. "Can I come over?" Sophie asked. "Not today, Soph. I'm not well." "That's exactly why I should come. Tomorrow, I promise." Eleanor hung up before her friend could insist. She didn't want witnesses to the breakdown she felt coming. She walked to the bedroom and opened the wardrobe. Her clothes were perfectly organized by color and season. Everything in its place, everything perfect, everything dead. She pulled a box from the top shelf. Inside were old things. Photos from when she was 18, concert tickets she'd gone to alone, a sketchbook she'd abandoned at architecture school, dropped in her second year when she met Richard. There were also brushes her grandmother had given her, saying Eleanor had an artist's hands. Eleanor opened the sketchbook. The drawings were raw, imperfect, but had something her current life didn't: truth. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. When she opened them, she made a decision. The next day, Eleanor took the car and drove to Shoreditch. She didn't tell Richard, didn't even try. He wouldn't ask where she was. He never asked. The neighborhood breathed art through its corners, with its colorful murals and converted warehouses. She found the painting studio without difficulty, a red brick building with large windows and a discreet sign at the entrance. "Can I help you?" A man of about 38 appeared at the door. He had grey hair at the temples, hands stained with paint, and eyes that actually looked. They didn't look through, didn't ignore. They looked. "I wanted to enroll in classes." "Do you paint?" "I used to, long time ago." He smiled. "Time doesn't erase talent. It just puts it to sleep. Come in." The studio smelled of oil paint and turpentine. The walls were covered with students' paintings, each capturing a piece of soul. Eleanor felt something stir inside her, as if a part frozen for a long time was beginning to thaw. "I'm Thomas. And you?" "Eleanor." Welcome, Eleanor. When do you want to start? She looked around. For the first time in months, she felt like truly smiling. Today. I want to start today. The first brushstroke was clumsy. Eleanor held the brush like a pen, too stiff, too tense. Thomas watched silently for a few seconds before approaching. Are you afraid of it? He pointed to the blank canvas. No. But it was a lie. Blank canvases are the most honest. They don't lie, don't pretend, don't demand perfection. Thomas picked up another brush and dipped it in blue paint. Watch. He made a wide stroke, almost violent, tearing through the white with color. Eleanor's eyes widened. Like that? There's no like that. There's your way. He cleaned the brush and handed it to her. Now you. Eleanor breathed deeply and painted. The first brushstroke came out trembling, but the second was firmer. The third already had intention. Blue like the ocean she only saw from afar. Blue like the sadness she carried. Blue like the freedom she didn't yet know. Thomas said nothing, just observed. When she stopped, exhausted and surprisingly relieved, he nodded. How you have pain in your hands? What? Emotional pain. It comes out through your hands. It's good. Means you're feeling. Eleanor looked at what she'd created. It wasn't beautiful. It was chaotic, urgent, desperate. It was true. I don't know if this is art. Art is anything that hurts to come out. The rest is decoration. She returned home at 6 in the evening with hands stained with paint that didn't come off completely even with soap. Richard still hadn't arrived. Eleanor prepared a simple dinner, ate alone, and went to sleep. For the first time in months, she dreamed in colors. The classes became weekly. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Eleanor drove to Shoreditch and spent 3 hours painting. Thomas was a demanding teacher, but kind. He never praised gratuitously, but when he did, his words had weight. You've improved, he said in the 4th class, observing a landscape Eleanor had tried to capture. But you're still holding back emotion. I see technique. Where are you? I don't understand. You paint what you see, but art is painting what you feel. He pointed to the sky in the painting. This blue is correct, pretty, well-behaved. But what if the sky were screaming? What if it were crying? What if it were dying? Eleanor looked at the canvas. He was right. She was painting the world as it should be, not as it was. How do I change that? Stop being afraid to be honest. In the next class, Eleanor painted Richard, not the physical Richard, but his absence. An empty chair at a set table, a space on the perfectly made bed, a faceless silhouette in front of a lit laptop. When she finished, her hands were trembling. Thomas was silent for long seconds. This is art. It's too sad. True art always is. Eleanor didn't take this painting home. She left it at the studio, unable to face her own truth on the walls of the flat where the lie lived. Richard noticed the paint stains one night. What's this? He took her hand, frowning. I started painting. Painting? Yes, I'm taking classes. Oh. He was already looking at his phone again. That's nice. Eleanor slowly withdrew her hand. That's nice. 2 empty words that summarized everything. She could have said she was learning to fly or that she'd discovered a new galaxy. The answer would be the same. That night, lying next to a man who seemed miles away, Eleanor decided something. If Richard didn't see her pain, at least her paintings would. 3 months passed in brushstrokes and silences. Eleanor produced 16 canvases, each a silent scream from a woman learning to find herself. Thomas began treating her differently, no longer as a student, but as an artist. There's a collective exhibition in Chelsea, he said one rainy June morning. Emerging artists, I can nominate you. Eleanor almost dropped her brush. Me? But I'm not a real artist. Who decides that? I don't know. People, critics. And you? Do you decide what you are? Eleanor looked at her stained hands, at the canvases around her, at the last few weeks of her life, where for the first time in a year she felt she could breathe. Yes, I want to. Then choose 3 works. The exhibition is in 2 months. Eleanor floated to the car. On the way back, she stopped at a traffic light and saw a couple laughing inside a bus. Something simple, mundane, and that she didn't have. The light changed and she continued, but the image remained engraved. At home, she tried to tell Richard about the exhibition. He was in the study, as always, surrounded by architectural plans and financial spreadsheets. "Richard? I'm going to exhibit my paintings in Chelsea. It's a collective exhibition of emerging artists." He lifted his eyes for half a second. "Really? That's nice, Elle," and returned to the screen. Eleanor stood in the doorway. "That's nice. Again, always. That's nice. Never, I'm proud. Never, tell me more. Never, when is it so I can go?" "It's on August 15th, she insisted. "Put it in the calendar. If I can make it, I'll show up." Eleanor closed the door and went to the bedroom. She picked up her phone and wrote to Sophie, "I'm exhibiting my paintings. Will you come?" The answer came in seconds. "Obviously, I'm so proud of you. Tell me everything." At least someone cared. The following days were intense. Eleanor needed to choose the 3 works that would represent her. Thomas helped, but the final decision was hers. She chose The Empty Chair, Silence for Two, and Woman at the Window. This last one the most personal, showing herself looking at the city half in light, half in shadow. "They're painful," Thomas commented, "but necessary." The gallery confirmed her participation. 20 artists, 60 works, one night to change everything. Eleanor spent the following days oscillating between euphoria and dread. What if no one liked them? What if it was a disaster? What if she wasn't good enough? "Are you ready?" Thomas asked in the last class before the exhibition. "No, but I'm going anyway," he smiled. "That's the only way to be ready." A week before the exhibition, Eleanor bought a new dress, emerald green, which enhanced her eyes and made her skin glow. She stored it in a separate area of the wardrobe, as if it were a superhero costume that would only be worn when she needed extra courage. Richard didn't even notice the new dress hanging there. On the eve of the exhibition, Eleanor barely slept. She dreamed of empty galleries, torn canvases, people laughing at her art. She woke at 5 in the morning with her heart racing. Richard snored beside her, oblivious to the storm happening inside her. She went to the window and watched the dawn tinting the sky pink and orange. The city woke slowly, lazy, not knowing that this day would change her life. August 15th dawned with clear skies and a sea breeze. Eleanor woke early, too nervous to stay in bed. Richard had already left for a morning meeting. He'd left a note in the kitchen. "Good luck today. I'll try to make it." Eleanor crumpled the note and threw it in the bin, then retrieved it, smoothed it out and put it in her bag. She didn't know why. She spent the day trying to distract herself. Went to the gym but gave up after 10 minutes on the treadmill. Tried to read, but the words danced meaninglessly on the page. Took 3 showers. At 4 in the afternoon, she started getting ready. The emerald green dress fell perfectly on her body. She pulled her hair into a low bun, leaving some strands loose framing her face. Light makeup, just enough, not to look pale. Jasmine perfume, the same her mother wore on special days. At 5:30, Richard called. "Elle, sorry. The meeting with the Japanese clients was rescheduled for tonight. I won't be able to make it." She closed her eyes. Of course he couldn't. "It's fine. Really? You understand, right? It's a £15 million deal. I understand. I love you," he said automatically, like someone saying, "See you later." "You too." Eleanor lied and hung up. She stood in the middle of the bedroom, looking at herself in the mirror. A beautiful woman, dressed up, alone. Always alone. She blinked rapidly, refusing to cry and ruin her makeup. Sophie rang the doorbell at exactly 6. "You look stunning!" Her friend entered enthusiastically, dressed in a striking red jumpsuit. "Ready to conquer the art world? Ready not to vomit from nerves? That's a start. Where's Richard?" "Work." Sophie made a face but said nothing. She didn't need to. The gallery was on a quiet Chelsea street near the Thames. It was a modern space with white walls and strategic lighting that made each work shine. When Eleanor arrived, there were already some people circulating, glasses of white wine in hand, low conversations about techniques and inspirations. Her 3 works were side by side on a side wall. Eleanor stopped in front of them, her heart beating so hard it seemed everyone could hear. "Are these yours?" a woman of about 50 asked. "They are." "They're devastating." The woman tilted her head. "Especially this one." She pointed to woman at the window. "It hurts to look at." "It was meant to hurt," Eleanor answered before thinking. The woman smiled. "Then you succeeded." Thomas arrived half an hour later, accompanied by a tall man of about 40, dark hair and thin-framed glasses. There was something about him that conveyed power without arrogance, wealth without ostentation. "Eleanor, I want to introduce someone," Thomas said. "This is Adrian Hayes. He owns 3 important galleries, 1 here in London, 2 in New York." Adrian extended his hand. His grip was firm but not crushing. "Pleasure, Eleanor. Thomas has told me a lot about you. I hope good things. Only truths, and truths about art tend to be good." He turned to her works and fell silent. A long, dense silence that made Eleanor sweat cold. Sophie squeezed her hand discreetly in a gesture of support. Adrian approached woman at the window, leaning in to observe every detail. He spent almost 5 minutes there saying nothing. When he finally turned, his eyes were different. "Whoever painted this understands loneliness in a way few can express," he said. "This isn't technique, this is truth." Eleanor felt tears burn her eyes. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. You did the hard work." Adrian took a card from his pocket. "I'd like to represent you commercially. I have contacts with serious collectors. I can include your works in important auctions, and—" He paused. "I have a proposal. How about a solo exhibition in 6 months? Eleanor blinked. She must have heard wrong. "Solo?" "Yes, only your works. An entire gallery dedicated to your work." Sophie screamed and squeezed Eleanor's arm hard. Thomas smiled like a proud father. Adrian waited for the answer, serene. Yes. Yes. I accept." "Excellent. Can we schedule lunch next week to discuss details?" "Of course." Adrian smiled again and handed her the card. Then he said goodbye and went to observe other works. Eleanor stood there, the card trembling between her fingers. Sophie hugged her tight. "You did it. You really did it." Thomas just waved from afar, his eyes shining. The rest of the night passed in a blur of congratulations, conversations about art, and 3 glasses of wine Eleanor drank too quickly. When she finally left the gallery, it was past midnight. Sophie drove her home, singing 90s hits along the way, trying to maintain the celebratory mood. When Eleanor entered the flat, she found Richard in the living room. He was sitting on the sofa, tablet in hand, an expression she couldn't decipher. The screen light illuminated his face from below, creating strange shadows. "You're awake," she said, surprised. "I was waiting for you." "Why?" He turned the tablet toward her. It was an online article from a society blog. "Exhibition of emerging artists reveals new talents in Chelsea." There were several photos of the event, and in one of them Eleanor was laughing next to Adrian, who looked at her with obvious admiration. "Who's this man?" Richard's voice had a new harshness, and suddenly Eleanor understood. He wasn't worried. He was jealous. "Adrian Hayes, gallery owner," Eleanor answered, too tired for games. "He's going to represent me commercially and offered a solo exhibition in 6 months. Richard put the tablet down on the sofa. "And since when are you so close to men who look at you like that? Like what? Like you're interesting." The word cut. Interesting. As if being interesting was something impossible for her, as if she needed his permission to be seen by others. "I am interesting, Richard," Eleanor said slowly. "I always was. You just stopped noticing." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" She threw her bag on the sofa. "When was the last time you asked me how I was, really? Not everything all right, in passing, but really wanted to know?" Richard opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I work very hard to give you this life." "This life?" Eleanor opened her arms. "This life of loneliness in an expensive flat. This life of dining alone every day. This life of not mattering to my own husband." "You're exaggerating." "Am I?" She grabbed his phone from the coffee table. Your calendar is empty on weekends. Empty, Richard. As if I don't exist, as if we don't exist. He fell silent. For the first time, he had no ready answer. Eleanor went to the bedroom and slammed the door. She lay down still dressed, her heart racing, anger and sadness mixed in a tight knot in her chest. She expected Richard to follow her, expected a real argument, anything that showed he cared. He didn't come. The following days were strange. Richard started arriving earlier. Not much, 7:30 instead of 11, but it was a change. He asked about her day, brought flowers, suggested dinners out. But Eleanor noticed, it wasn't renewed love. It was territory being marked. He didn't want her. He just didn't want another man to want her. "You're different," Sophie commented during lunch. "More conflicted." "Richard's trying." "That's good, isn't it?" "Should be." Eleanor pushed food around without appetite. "But it feels late. And wrong. Like he only cares because another man showed up." "And Adrian?" "It's just professional." "Are you sure?" Eleanor didn't answer. Because she wasn't. Adrian called 2 or 3 times a week to discuss the exhibition. Conversations that began about logistics and ended in philosophy, art, dreams. He sent books he knew she'd love, always with handwritten notes. "Page 47, this reminded me of you." Or, Chapter 3, thought you'd like his approach to solitude. "Why do you do this?" Eleanor asked in one of these calls. "Do what?" "Send books, call. Treat me as if I matter." Silence on the other end. "Because you do matter," Adrian said simply. "You're talented, interesting, and deserve to be treated as such." Eleanor hung up, feeling a whirlwind inside. It wasn't physical attraction, not yet. It was something more dangerous. She felt seen, really seen, for the first time in a year. 2 weeks later, Adrian invited her to visit other studios. Networking, he called it, part of an artist's development. Richard didn't like it. "Do you need to go with him?" "He's my representative." "But does it have to be Saturday?" "You'll be working anyway," Eleanor responded. It wasn't fair, but it was true. Saturday dawned with strong sun. Adrian picked Eleanor up at home, driving an elegant but not ostentatious car. They visited 3 studios in Shoreditch and Camden, talking with established artists who gave valuable advice about the art market. "For you have real potential," a 60-year-old sculptor told Eleanor. "But you need to decide, do you want to sell or do you want to create? Seems the same, but it isn't." "What's the difference?" "Selling is thinking about what others want to see. Creating is bleeding on the canvas and not caring who's looking." On the way back, Adrian stopped at a viewpoint overlooking the Thames. "What did you think?" he asked. "I think I want to create." "Even if it's harder?" "Especially if it's harder." He looked at her for a moment too long to be just professional. "Eleanor." "No. I haven't said anything yet." "But you were going to. And the answer is no." Adrian nodded, turning his gaze back to the landscape. "Sorry. Sometimes I forget the boundaries." "It's not your fault," Eleanor said quietly. "It's mine. For liking how you look at me." The raw truth hung in the air between them. Neither said anything more for the rest of the journey. When Eleanor arrived home at 6 in the evening, she found Richard in the living room with candles lit and dinner prepared. He was wearing the shirt she liked, the same one from their wedding. "Surprise," he said without smiling. Eleanor looked at the table, at the candles, at the man who a year ago promised to love her forever and now tried to fix her with empty gestures. "Why?" she asked. "Because I'm an idiot." "That's not answer enough." Richard pulled out a chair for her. "Sit, please." Eleanor sat, tired of resisting. "I lost you," Richard said. "Not now, months ago. And I didn't notice because I was so focused on building things that I forgot the only thing that really mattered. And what is that? You." It was what she wanted to hear. It was, but it sounded too late, like a beautiful song played at a funeral. "Richard, I know I took too long. But I'm here now. I'm seeing you now. Give me a chance to fix this." Helena looked at the man she loved. That she still loved in a way. But she loved the woman she'd become in recent weeks more, and she knew with painful clarity that staying there was choosing to die again. They ate dinner in heavy silence. Richard served the wine, cut the perfectly prepared fish, but couldn't look in her eyes. Eleanor ate automatically, each forkful tasteless. "There's dessert," Richard said when they finished. "I don't want it." I can't do this." "Do what?" "Pretend everything's fine because you decided to care now." Richard rested his elbows on the table, hiding his face in his hands. When he lifted his head, his eyes were red. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," Eleanor answered. "I want nothing. That's the problem." She got up and went to the bedroom. She grabbed her phone and saw 3 messages from Adrian. "How was dinner?" "Sorry if I was inappropriate today. Are you okay?" Eleanor didn't respond. She put the phone away and lay down still dressed. Richard didn't come to the bedroom that night. The following week was a silent tug of war. Richard tried, genuinely tried. He arrived at 7, talked during dinner, even turned off his laptop one night to watch a film with her. But Eleanor felt nothing. It was like watching a play where there used to be life. "He's trying," Sophie said one afternoon over coffee. "Don't you think he deserves a chance? He had a year of chances." "But people change." "People don't change, Soph. They just remember how they should act when they're afraid of losing something." Sophie sighed. "Do you still love him?" Eleanor took a while to answer. "I do, but I love who I am when he's not around more." The solo exhibition was scheduled for January. 5 months of preparation. Adrian sent Eleanor a list of possible works to develop, but she already had her own ideas. She wanted a series about women who disappear, not physically, but emotionally, inside relationships that swallowed them alive. Thomas loved the idea. "It's visceral," he said. "It's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, but that's the function of art." Eleanor worked obsessively. She painted 6 hours a day, sometimes more. Each canvas was an exorcism, each brushstroke a scream she could never give aloud. Richard complained that she was always out. "You spend more time in that studio than here." "Because there I exist. And here you don't. Here I'm Richard's wife. There I'm Eleanor." He had no answer for that. In mid-October, Adrian scheduled a lunch to discuss marketing strategy for the exhibition. They met at a restaurant by the Thames in Chelsea. The view was beautiful. Golden sand, breaking waves, happy families building ephemeral castles. "You look tired," Adrian commented. "I'm painting a lot." "It's not just that." Eleanor sipped her sparkling water. "Richard's trying to save the marriage." "And do you want to be saved?" "I don't know what I want anymore," she admitted. "I spent so long not choosing anything that now having choices feels too heavy." Adrian said nothing for a moment. "Can I tell you something, without being inappropriate?" "You can. You have a rare gift, not just for art but for truth. You can't live on the surface, you need depth. And I think you're afraid to dive. Because diving hurts. But staying on the shore kills." Eleanor stared at him. Adrian stared back. Something passed between them, unspoken but impossible to ignore. "I need to go." She stood up abruptly. "Eleanor." "Thank you for lunch." She practically ran to the car park. Sitting in the car, trembling, she called Thomas. "I need help." "What happened?" "I'm falling for the wrong person and I can't stop." Silence on the other end. "Come to the studio. We'll paint this." Eleanor spent the entire afternoon painting. Not something planned, but an explosion of red, black and gold. A woman being pulled in 3 directions by invisible hands. When she finished, Thomas whistled low. "This is going in the exhibition." "I can't exhibit this, it's too obvious." "That's exactly why you have to exhibit it. Art is opening the wound, not hiding it." That night, Richard was waiting for her with a serious expression. "We need to talk." About you being in love with another man." The world stopped. Eleanor sat down slowly on the sofa. "How did you—" "I see, Eleanor. You shine when you talk about him, about this exhibition, this new life, and you dim when you get here." Tears ran down her face. "I'm sorry. Don't apologize. I did this. I dimmed you first. Richard, answer me one thing. Do you still love me? Eleanor breathed deeply, searching for honesty within the chaos. I do, but not like before. Not enough. Richard nodded, a solitary tear running down his cheek. And him? Do you love him? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe I just love how he makes me feel. Which is? Alive. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. Richard got up, went to the window, and stood looking at the city below. There's a job offer, he said without turning. In Edinburgh, Director of Operations for a property development company. It's a huge promotion. And you're going to accept? I was thinking maybe we need a fresh start, away from here, just the two of us. Eleanor felt her chest tighten. But my exhibition... It's in January. The position only opens in March. You'd have time to do the exhibition, and then we'd go together. It was an impossible proposal. Choose between the life she was building and the marriage she'd promised. Let me think. You have to answer by next week. Eleanor nodded. That night, she slept on the sofa. The following days were pure agony. Eleanor oscillated between guilt and anger, between the desire to try with Richard and the need to fly alone. Sophie thought she should give the marriage a chance. Thomas thought she should follow the art. Adrian, when she finally told him, said nothing, just listened. And you? What do you think? Eleanor asked in a late-night call. I think you already know the answer, Adrian said gently. You're just afraid to accept it. But what if I'm wrong? What if I throw away a marriage for a fantasy? The fantasy is thinking you can be happy living someone else's life. Eleanor hung up and cried for an hour straight. The next day, she painted a woman torn in half in vibrant colors, half in faded gray. Richard kept his distance, respecting her space, but the question was always there, unspoken, but heavy. On the 5th day, he asked, Have you decided? Not yet. The deadline is tomorrow, Elle. I know. She went to the studio. Thomas was there, mixing paints for an afternoon class. I can't decide, Eleanor said, entering, because you're trying to choose with your head. Art is chosen with the hand. I don't understand. Thomas pushed a blank canvas toward her and a brush. Paint whatever you want without thinking. Eleanor painted, let her hand guide. Red, blue, yellow, green, black. The colors mixed, created forms, told stories. When she stopped, exhausted, she looked at what she'd created. It was a woman flying, alone, free. There, Thomas said, you've already chosen. Eleanor arrived home at 7 in the evening. Richard was in the living room, his suitcase packed beside the sofa. He looked at her and knew before she said it. You're not going. I can't, Eleanor whispered. If I go, I'll die again. Richard closed his eyes. Do you love him? I don't know. But I know I can't stay here anymore. Even if I change. Even if I really try. Richard, Eleanor sat beside him. You don't want me. You want not to be alone. And I can't be the cure for your loneliness. That's not true. It is, and you know it. They sat in silence. The wall clock marked the seconds, each heavier than the last. I really lost you, didn't I? Richard said. You lost me when you stopped looking for me. He nodded, grabbed the suitcase and went to the door. He turned one last time. I hope it's worth it. This freedom, this art. I hope it's everything you imagine. Richard, I'm going to Edinburgh anyway. You can stay here until you find a place. I won't be that much of an arse. Thank you. He left. The door closed, and Eleanor was alone in the flat for the first time in a year. But this time, the loneliness didn't hurt. It breathed. In the following days, Eleanor moved on autopilot, talked to a solicitor about separation, started looking for a flat, called her family, who didn't understand but tried to support, and painted like never before. Adrian appeared at the studio a week later. I heard about the separation. Bad news travels fast. How are you? Eleanor looked at the canvases around her. 12 new works in a week. Each one raw, truer than the last. "I'm alive," Adrian smiled. "Good, because I have news. Good or bad? Depends on perspective. An important collector from Paris saw photos of your works on Instagram. He wants to come to the exhibition, and if he likes it, he wants to include you in an art fair in Paris in April." The world spun. Paris, the city of her dreams, the city that always seemed impossible. Paris? 3 months living there, artist residency, all expenses paid, mentorship with a French master. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. Eleanor sat in a chair. "I just left a marriage. I can't go to Paris." "Why not?" "Because—" She searched for reasons and found none. "Because it would be madness. Or it would be exactly what you need." Eleanor looked at Adrian. He was serious, but there was something more in his eyes. Hope? Desire? "Would you go?" she asked. "To Paris? No? I have business here, but I'd visit you if you wanted." "That would be a terrible idea." "Probably." They stared at each other. The air between them was charged with everything they didn't say, everything they wanted but couldn't. "I need to think," Eleanor said finally. "Of course. You have time until after the exhibition. January. Then you decide." He left, leaving Eleanor alone with the impossible possibility of a completely new life. November arrived with intense rain. Eleanor found a small flat in Notting Hill, a one-bedroom with a balcony overlooking a tree-lined street. It was a tenth the size of Richard's penthouse, but when she entered for the first time, she felt she could finally breathe. The move was quick. She took few things: clothes, some books, the canvases she'd painted. Left behind the expensive furniture, imported appliances, all the empty luxury she once thought she wanted. Richard helped, kind but distant, like two strangers sharing a funeral. "If you need anything," he said when she handed over the keys, "I'll be fine." "I know. I always knew you would be." Eleanor almost asked why he didn't fight harder, but swallowed the words. It didn't matter anymore. The new flat was silent in a different way. Not the heavy silence of the penthouse, but a light silence full of possibilities. Eleanor painted the walls white, set up a small studio in the bedroom, filled the balcony with plants. For the first time in a year, she decorated a space thinking only of herself. But freedom hurt more than she imagined. The nights were long and lonely. Without Richard, without routine, without structure, she found herself lost. She woke at 3 in the morning with her chest tight, not knowing if she'd made the right choice. She cried in the shower, long cries that left her eyes swollen. "It's normal," Sophie said when Eleanor confessed. "You're grieving. Not for him, but for the life you thought you'd have. But I chose this." Choosing doesn't make it easier. The exhibition was 2 months away. Eleanor needed 16 complete works, plus the 3 from the first exhibition. She had 11 ready and 5 in process. She worked 16 hours a day, painting until her hands hurt, until her eyes burned. Adrian visited twice a week, always professional, always careful with boundaries. But something was changing. Accidental touches lasted longer. Looks extended. Silences became charged. "You're killing yourself," he said on one of these visits, seeing the deep circles under her eyes. "I'm alive for the first time. Life isn't suffering." "Isn't it?" Eleanor laughed bitterly. "Then what is it?" "Choosing the suffering that's worth it." In the second week of November, Eleanor had her first panic attack. She was painting when suddenly the air ran out. Her chest tightened. The room spun. She fell to the floor, unable to breathe, certain she was going to die there, alone, in an empty flat. She managed to call Sophie, who arrived in 15 minutes and took her to hospital. It was nothing physical, the doctors said. It was anxiety, stress, the body charging the price of radical transformation. "You need to rest," the doctor said, "and consider therapy." Eleanor started therapy the following week. 2 sessions a week where she cried, screamed, collapsed in front of a patient woman who just listened and occasionally asked, "And how did that make you feel?" "I thought it would be easier," Eleanor confessed in one session. "I thought leaving the marriage would free me, but I feel more trapped than before." "Trapped in what?" "In myself. In not knowing who I am without being someone's wife. In being afraid I threw everything away for nothing. Do you think you threw everything away? Eleanor looked out the consulting room window. A child was playing in the square, free, happy, whole. I don't know yet. December arrived hot and humid. The exhibition was a month away. Eleanor finished the 16 works, each one a piece of soul placed on canvas. The complete series told the story of a woman who disappeared and found herself, who died and was reborn, who lost herself and found herself. It's your best work, Thomas said, seeing everything together for the first time. And it's going to destroy people. Good. Eleanor, he hesitated. Have you decided about Paris? No. But are you going? Probably. And Adrian? Eleanor turned to him. How do you know? I'm old, not blind. You've been dancing around each other for months. Nothing's happened. Because you haven't let it. But are you going to? I don't know. I'm afraid. Of what? Of replacing one cage with another. Of needing someone to be complete. Of never being able to be alone. Thomas placed a hand on her shoulder. Eleanor, listen. You're learning to fly, but birds don't fly alone. They fly in flocks. It's not weakness to need someone. It's human. But Eleanor wasn't sure she believed that. On the last day of December, New Year's Eve, Adrian showed up at her flat without warning. He brought a bottle of champagne and a serious expression. Aren't I going to your party? Eleanor asked. No. I came to ask for something. What? Don't go to Paris. The world stopped. Why? Because I spent 6 months trying to be professional, trying to keep my distance, and I can't anymore. Because I wake up thinking about you and fall asleep thinking about you. Because you're the bravest and most frightened person I've ever met, and I'm completely in love with you. Eleanor was speechless. Adrian continued, but I also came to say that if you want to go, I'll support you, because I love you enough to want you to fly, even if it's away from me. Tears streamed down her face. Adrian, don't answer now, think. The exhibition is in 2 weeks. After that you decide, but I needed you to know. He left the bottle, kissed her forehead gently, and left, leaving Eleanor alone on New Year's Eve with an impossible decision in her hands. Eleanor spent New Year's Eve alone on the balcony, watching fireworks explode over the Thames. Each explosion of light seemed to shout, "Choose, choose, choose." At 2 in the morning, drunk on champagne and exhausted from crying, she called Richard. "Happy New Year," she said when he answered. "Elle, are you okay?" "No. I'm terrible, and confused, and missing you." Silence on the other end. Then, missing me or the idea of me? The question sobered her. Eleanor breathed deeply. "I don't know anymore." "I miss you too," Richard confessed, "but we did the right thing." "How do you know?" "Because for the first time in years I'm not pretending, not even with myself, and neither are you." They talked for an hour, about everything and nothing. When they hung up, Eleanor felt a strange peace. It wasn't forgiveness, it was acceptance. The following days were a rush. The gallery got in touch about final details. Publicity began. Articles in blogs, posts on social media, invitations to important curators. Eleanor's name began circulating in London art circles. Adrian kept his distance, as he promised, but he sent short messages, "Thinking of you. It's going to be great. You're incredible." Each message was a sweet knife in her chest. Sophie helped Eleanor choose the dress for the opening. Something simple, black, elegant. "You're not the work," Sophie said. "You're the artist." Thomas did a rehearsal at the studio, preparing Eleanor for possible press questions. "If they ask about inspiration, what do you say?" "The truth that I painted my pain." "And if they ask about the exhibition title?" The title was Women Who Vanish. Simple, direct, devastating. "I say every woman has felt invisible at some point. I just painted it." The eve of the exhibition, Eleanor barely slept. She got up at 5 in the morning and went to walk on the south bank. The sun rose slowly, tinting the sky pink and orange. There were few joggers on the path, some dogs happily chasing pigeons. An elderly woman was feeding birds on a bench. Eleanor sat beside her. Good morning. Good morning, dear. Up early. Couldn't sleep. Love problem or life problem? Eleanor laughed. Both. Ah, then it's the worst kind. The woman threw more crumbs. But you know what I learned in 72 years? What? That we're never ready. For anything. Marriage, children, death, love. We just jump and pray we land well. And if we don't land well? Get up and jump again. The woman left, leaving Eleanor with her simple and profound words. She went back home, took a long bath, and got ready slowly. Each gesture was deliberate, ritualistic. She was preparing not just for an exhibition, but for a rebirth. The gallery was transformed. The 16 works occupied the main walls, dramatically lit. There was a printed catalogue with texts by renowned specialists. A bar served themed drinks. Everything was perfect. Eleanor arrived an hour before opening. Adrian was there, talking with journalists. When he saw her, he stopped mid-sentence. His eyes said everything his words couldn't. "You look beautiful," he said, approaching. "I'm terrified. You're going to kill it." The doors opened at 7. The gallery filled quickly. Critics, collectors, curious people, friends. Sophie arrived with a ridiculously large bouquet of flowers. Thomas brought his students. Even Richard sent flowers with a card. "Proud of you, always was. Just forgot to say." The first hours were a blur of handshakes, polite smiles, explanations about technique and inspiration. Eleanor responded automatically, her body present but her mind floating. Then he entered, the Paris collector, a man of about 60, completely white hair, impeccable suit. He walked slowly through the exhibition, stopping for a long time at each work. He didn't speak to anyone, just observed. When he finished the circuit, he looked for Adrian. "Who's the artist?" Adrian pointed to Eleanor. The man approached her with an impossible-to-decipher expression. "Extraordinary," he said with a heavy French accent. "You don't paint women. You paint ghosts trying to become people again." Eleanor didn't know what to say. "I want to buy 4 pieces and confirm. Are you coming to Paris?" "I haven't decided yet." "Decide. Quickly. The world needs to see your work." He left, leaving Eleanor trembling. Adrian held her by the elbow. "Breathe. He wants 4 pieces. I know he'll pay £80,000 for 4 paintings. You're officially a successful artist." Eleanor sat in a chair, her legs weak. £80,000. It was more money than she'd earned in her entire life. The rest of the night passed in a trance. More sales, more praise. An important critic called her work visceral and necessary. A curator offered to include her in a collective exhibition in Manchester. When the gallery finally emptied, it was past midnight. Eleanor was exhausted, her feet hurting, makeup smudged. Adrian helped wrap the sold works. "You did it?" he said. "Did what?" "Proved you exist. That you matter. That you're incredible." Eleanor looked at him. The gallery was empty, silent, just the two of them and the art she'd bled to create. "Adrian, I know," he interrupted. "You haven't decided yet. It's okay." "It's not okay," Eleanor exploded. "Nothing's okay. I left a marriage, I'm going to Paris, and you show up saying you love me. How can that be okay? Because you're free. For the first time, you're completely free to choose. What if I choose wrong?" "There's no wrong choice, there's only choice." Eleanor moved closer to him. Their eyes were inches apart. She could feel his warmth, his scent, his tension. "I can't," she whispered. "Not yet. I'll wait. What if it takes a long time?" "I'll wait." They stood like that, too close and too far, until Eleanor took a step back. "I need to go." She left the gallery, leaving Adrian alone with the works that told the story of a woman learning not to disappear. January arrived with suffocating heat. Eleanor spent the days locked in the flat, air conditioning on maximum, trying to decide about Paris. The ticket was bought, the flat there was reserved, the mentorship confirmed, everything ready. She just had to accept. But there was always a but. What if she hated Paris? What if she failed? What if it was easier alone in a new city than beside someone who already knew her weaknesses? Therapy helped, but didn't solve. The therapist just mirrored her doubts back, forcing her to face truths she preferred to ignore. "Are you afraid of Paris or Adrian?" the therapist asked in one session. "Of needing him. And what's wrong with needing someone? I already needed Richard, and I lost myself in him. Adrian isn't Richard, but I'm still me. What if I lose myself again?" The therapist adjusted her glasses. "Eleanor, when you paint, are you afraid of losing yourself in the canvas?" "No, it's different." "How?" "The canvas can't hurt me, but it can transform you, and transformation always hurts. The question is the pain worth it?" Eleanor didn't answer. She spent the rest of the session in silence. Adrian respected the distance she imposed, but was always present. Daily messages. "Good morning. How are you? Did you eat anything today?" Small things that meant everything. One afternoon, he showed up with Thai food. "You need to eat." "I'm not hungry." "I didn't ask your opinion." He opened the containers on the coffee table. "Eat." Eleanor ate automatically. It was delicious, but she barely tasted it. "Paris is 3 weeks away," Adrian said casually. "I know." "Are you going?" "I think so." "You think?" "I don't know," Eleanor exploded. "Do you think it's easy, making this decision, choosing between an incredible opportunity and you? I'm not an option, never said I was." "Then what are you?" Adrian put down his fork and stared at her. "I'm someone who loves you enough to let you go, but I'm also someone who'll fight for you to stay, because you deserve to be loved like this, with intensity, with presence, with truth." Richard loved me. Richard loved the idea of having a wife. I love you. The complicated, frightened, brilliant Eleanor, who paints pain like it's light. Eleanor felt tears burn. "I don't know if I can believe in love again." "Then don't. But stay. Paint. Live. And let love happen naturally." "And Paris?" "Go. Stay 3 months. Paint like crazy. Then come back and we'll see." That simple? That simple. But it wasn't simple. Nothing was. That night Eleanor had another panic attack, worse than the first. She called Adrian crying, unable to speak properly. He arrived in 10 minutes and held her until her breathing returned to normal. "Sorry," she said when she could speak. "Don't apologize, never." He stayed with her all night. Didn't try anything, just stayed there, present, solid, real. In the morning, when Eleanor woke on the sofa with her head in his lap, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: safety. "Good morning," Adrian said, running his hand through her hair. "You stayed all night." "I said I'd wait." Didn't specify where. Eleanor sat up, her heart racing for different reasons. "Adrian, I can't promise you anything." "I didn't ask for promises." "But you deserve them." "I deserve a woman who chooses to stay because she wants to, not because she promised." "Are you that woman?" Eleanor looked at him, at the tired but kind eyes, at the hands that held her all night, at the man who saw her, really saw her, in all her mess and beauty. "I don't know yet, but I want to be." That's enough. They stayed like that, in the morning silence, with the city waking outside and a pending decision between them. The following week, Eleanor finally talked to Richard about the definitive divorce. He was well settled in Edinburgh, in a new penthouse with a new girlfriend who worked at the company. He spoke about her with a sparkle in his eyes he never had when talking about Eleanor. "You're happy," Eleanor commented. "I am, for the first time in a long time. And you?" "I'm learning to be. That's what matters." When they hung up, Eleanor felt a door closing definitively. It didn't hurt. It hurt less than she expected. It was just the end. 2 days before her departure for Paris, Eleanor did something she'd never done. She painted Adrian, not his face, but the feeling of him. Open hands, receptive. Warm light, welcoming. Space to breathe. When she finished, she cried for an hour straight. Thomas saw the painting and nodded. "You've decided." "Have I?" "You have, just haven't admitted it yet." On the last night in London, Eleanor had dinner with Sophie. "Will you miss me?" her friend asked. "Every single night. Promise you'll call?" "Every single day." Sophie hugged her tight. "You're the bravest person I know." "I don't feel brave. Because courage isn't not being afraid. It's doing it despite fear." Eleanor arrived home late. Adrian was waiting at the building entrance. "I couldn't let you go without saying goodbye." "It's not goodbye. It's see you later." "Eleanor," he pulled her close. 3 months. Then we figure out the rest." She nodded, unable to speak. He kissed her forehead, long, tender, like a promise. Then he left, leaving Eleanor alone with her suitcases, her fears, and a one-way ticket to Paris. The plane took off at 8 in the morning. Eleanor had a window seat and spent the hour-and-a-half flight looking at clouds, thinking about everything she was leaving and everything she was seeking. Paris awaited her with vague and frightening promises. The flat was in Le Marais, 3rd floor with no lift, with windows overlooking a cobblestone street where cafes opened at 6 in the morning and closed after midnight. It was small, cramped, with peeling walls and noisy plumbing. It was perfect. The first days were desperate. Eleanor didn't speak French beyond basics. The January European cold cut to the bone. She felt minuscule in that enormous city, just another foreigner trying to make art in a city that had breathed art for centuries. The mentor, Jacques Dubois, was a 65-year-old man with long white hair tied in a ponytail, fingers permanently stained with paint. He looked at Eleanor's portfolio for 5 minutes without saying anything. "Interesting technique, but you paint with anger." "So what?" "Anger is good, but anger alone is exhausting. Where's the joy?" "I don't understand." "You paint women suffering. Very well, I must say, but suffering isn't living. When will you paint women living?" Eleanor had no answer. The following weeks were brutal. Jacques forced her to paint things she hated. Still lifes, landscapes, portraits of strangers on the street. "You need to stop painting to bleed and start painting to breathe," he said. Eleanor hated every second. She felt trapped, forced, misunderstood. She called Adrian almost every night, crying, saying she wanted to return. "One more week," he always said. "Hold on 1 more week." And she held on, and another, and another. At the end of the first month, something changed. Eleanor was painting a bouquet of wilted flowers Jacques had brought. She painted mechanically, with anger, when suddenly she realized the flowers weren't sad. They were survivors, still colorful, even dying, still beautiful, even imperfect. She painted that. The beauty of imperfection, the strength of fragility. When she showed Jacques, he smiled for the first time. "Now, yes, now you're painting." Paris began to make sense. Eleanor woke early and walked for hours through the city, drew in cafes, painted by the Seine, talked in English with other artists from the collective studio where Jacques taught. For the first time, she didn't feel lonely being alone. Adrian visited at the end of February. 3 quick but intense days. They walked through Montmartre, visited the Louvre, had dinner in tiny bistros where the wine was cheap and the food was poetry. "You're different," he commented one night. "Different how?" "Lighter, like you've taken off armor." "Because I have." They returned to her flat, and for the first time, Eleanor kissed him. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't have a soundtrack. It was just honest. 2 humans meeting without fear. "I love you," she said when they separated. "I know, always knew. But I'm afraid." "Everyone is, but we do it anyway." They made love slowly, without urgency, rediscovering body and soul. Afterward, lying on a mattress that creaked with every movement, Eleanor laughed truly for the first time in months. "What is it?" Adrian asked. "All of this madness. Paris, you, me. A year ago, I was trapped in a golden cage. Now I'm here, happy in a shitty flat on the other side of the world. Sometimes we need to cross the world to discover what was always near." When Adrian left, Eleanor didn't cry. She knew it was temporary. 2 months remained. Then she'd return, or he'd come, or they'd figure out another way. March brought spring. Paris exploded in flowers, colors, life. Eleanor painted a new series, Women Who Return. Not women disappearing, but women rebuilding themselves, reappearing, being reborn. Jacques was silent when he saw it. "You're done," he said. "Done with what?" "Your transformation. Now you're a real artist." "How do you know?" "Because you stopped painting to prove something. Now you paint because you need to." The art fair happened in April, 3 intense days where galleries from around the world showed their artists. Eleanor had a small but strategic space. Her works attracted immediate attention. A curator from New York made a proposal. 2 collectors from Tokyo bought pieces. An important art magazine requested an interview. In 3 days, Eleanor sold more than the entire previous year. But the most important moment was when a girl of about 16 stopped in front of Woman at the window and started crying. "Are you okay?" Eleanor asked. "It's exactly how I feel," the girl said. "Like half of me is trapped and half trying to escape." "And which half will win?" The girl looked at the painting, at Eleanor back at the painting. "The half that wants to live." Eleanor hugged the girl, 2 strangers connected by the universal language of pain and hope. When the fair ended, Eleanor had proposals from 3 international galleries. She could stay in Europe, build a career, become a globally recognized artist, or she could go home, to Adrian, to London, to the life she was building. The decision, for the first time, didn't hurt. It was just a choice. Eleanor returned to London in May. Autumn arrived timidly, with still hot days and finally breathable nights. Adrian waited for her at the airport with simple flowers and a smile that said more than 1,000 words. "Welcome back. I missed you." "Me too, every moment." They kissed right there, not caring about curious looks. Eleanor felt she was finally home, not in London, but in the arms of someone who loved her without wanting to possess her. The Notting Hill flat was exactly as she'd left it. Sophie had taken care of the plants, aired the rooms, left food in the fridge. "Welcome back, you lunatic," said the note on the door. In the following days, Eleanor readjusted to the city. It was strange being back. Paris had changed something in her, a perspective, a lightness. London seemed smaller, but also more welcoming. Hadrian respected her space. Dinners twice a week, weekends together. Long conversations about art, future, dreams. But he never pressured, never demanded. Just was there. "I'm not in a hurry," he said one night. "We have our whole lives. What if I want to go back to Paris? Then I'll visit you, or we'll figure out a way to split time. It doesn't have to be black or white. Aren't you afraid of losing me? I am, but I'm more afraid of holding you too tight and suffocating you." Eleanor kissed him slowly, grateful for having found someone who understood that loving was also about letting go. Thomas organized a new exhibition for July. Women Who Return would be presented in London before traveling to Manchester and Edinburgh. The excitement was palpable. The press was already talking about the British artist who conquered Paris. But Eleanor didn't care about fame. She cared about what she painted, about the truth she put on canvases, about the people who saw themselves reflected there. One afternoon, Eleanor received an unexpected call. It was Richard. "Hi, Elle." "Richard, everything okay?" "Yes, I wanted to tell you something." "Go ahead." "I'm getting married to Anna, the girlfriend I told you about." Eleanor felt something stir in her chest. It wasn't pain. It was happiness. For him? "That's wonderful. Congratulations." "Really? You're not angry?" "Why would I be? I don't know, because we didn't make it." "We weren't meant to make it, Richard. But that doesn't mean it was a mistake. It was just the story that needed to happen for us to get where we are now." Silence on the other end. Then, his voice thick. "Thank you. For everything. For letting me go. Thank you." "For the same thing." When they hung up, Eleanor felt a final door closing. Not with sadness, but with gratitude. Richard had taught her what she didn't want, and sometimes that was the most important learning. The exhibition happened on a rainy Thursday in July. The gallery was packed. Critics, collectors, curious people, friends, and there on a main wall the complete series, 16 paintings showing the journey of a woman from disappearance to rebirth. Hadrian stayed by her side all night, a protective hand on her back but without suffocating. "You're killing it," he whispered. "We are," she corrected. Because it was true. None of this would have happened without him. Without the courage he inspired. Without the love that didn't demand, just offered. When the gallery emptied, it was past midnight. Thomas was the last to leave, hugging Eleanor tight. "You did it. From nothing to the top. In less than 2 years. It wasn't from nothing. It was from a lot of suffering transformed into art. It's always like that." Adrian and Eleanor walked through empty Chelsea, hand in hand without hurry. The rain had stopped, leaving the asphalt shiny and the air clean. "Eleanor." "Hmm?" "Marry me." She stopped walking. Her heart raced. "What?" "Marry me. Not now. When you're ready. 1 year, 2, 10. But I want to ask you this question at least once." "Adrian." "You don't need to answer now. I just wanted you to know." Eleanor looked at him, at the man who loved her without imprisoning her, who saw her without judging her, who let her fly knowing she'd always return. "Ask me again in 6 months. Can I ask sooner?" "You can, but the answer will still be wait 6 months." They laughed and continued walking. Eleanor knew that one day she'd say yes, but now, in that moment, she just wanted to be. Without hurry, without fear. Just alive. August arrived with cold days and grey sky. Eleanor was at the studio when she received an unexpected email. It was from the British collector who'd bought her works at the first exhibition. Paris, November, 6 months after she'd left. Eleanor called Adrian immediately. "He invited me to Paris." "That's incredible." "It is, but I don't know if I want to go." Silence on the other end. "Why not?" "Because I'm tired of living out of suitcases. I want to stay. I want to put down roots. I want you." Adrian said nothing for long seconds. "Eleanor, listen. You can't choose between career and love. You don't have to. We'll figure out a way." "But I don't want to figure out anymore. I want to decide, and I'm deciding." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely." But she wasn't. At night, alone in the flat, Eleanor wondered if she was giving up an incredible opportunity out of fear of being alone. If she was repeating the mistake with Richard, just inverted, tying herself to someone instead of freeing herself. Therapy helped clarify. "What's the difference between Richard and Adrian?" the therapist asked. "Richard made me disappear. Adrian makes me appear." "Then why the fear?" "Because," Eleanor breathed deeply, "because I'm afraid to be happy, to believe I can have both things, love and freedom. It seems like a lie. Or it seems possible." Eleanor decided to go to Paris, but not alone. She invited Adrian. "Come with me, stay 2 weeks, we'll get to know the city together. Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." They went in November. Paris was cold, rainy, grey, but also magical. The exhibition was an absolute success. Eleanor's work shared space with artists from 5 continents. British critics spoke of her as the Latin voice of contemporary female self-discovery. But the most important moment wasn't at the gallery. It was in an empty park under fine rain, when Adrian pulled her close and repeated the question, "Marry me." "Has it been 6 months already?" "It's been 4, but I can't wait anymore." Eleanor looked at the grey sky, at the rain wetting her face, at the man who held her as if she were precious but not fragile. "Yes." "Really?" "Really." He kissed her right there, in the rain, in the cold, not caring about the world around them. When they separated, both were laughing and crying at the same time. "But there are conditions," Eleanor said. "What?" "I keep painting, keep traveling, keep being me." "I wouldn't expect anything different. And you keep being you, independent, strong, present but not suffocating." "Done. And we never ever become that couple that forgets to exist separately. Never." They returned to London 3 days later, engaged but without hurry. "Maybe next year," Eleanor said, "or the year after, or never. Maybe we just need to know we chose to stay." Thomas got emotional when he heard, "You're getting married." "I don't know. Maybe. But the important thing is I want to. That's what matters." Sophie cried for 20 straight minutes when Eleanor told her, "I knew it. I knew from the beginning you two would end up together. We didn't end, Eleanor corrected, smiling. We're just beginning. The following weeks were strange and wonderful. Eleanor and Adrian didn't live together. She insisted she needed to keep her space, but spent almost every day together. Dinners, walks, conversations that lasted until dawn about everything and nothing. But something was changing in Eleanor, something beyond love, beyond career. It was a feeling of completeness she'd never experienced, not because she had someone, but because she finally had herself. One December afternoon, Eleanor was painting when she received a call from an unknown number. Hello? Eleanor Santos? A male voice, formal. Yes. My name is James Morrison. I'm curator at the Tate Modern. We're planning a retrospective of emerging young British artists for 2027. We'd like to include you as one of 5 principal artists. Eleanor almost dropped the brush. The Tate? Yes, it would be a 3-month exhibition, with published catalogue, lectures, workshops. It's a significant opportunity to solidify your career nationally. Yes, of course, I accept. When she hung up, Eleanor stood in the middle of the studio, trembling. The Tate, one of the most important museums in Britain. 2 years ago, she was an invisible wife in a luxury flat. Now she was a nationally recognized artist with international exhibitions and a bright future. But most importantly, she was happy. Adrian celebrated with champagne and kisses. Sophie screamed so loud, Eleanor had to hold the phone away from her ear. Thomas just smiled, that smile of someone who always knew. You got where you deserved, he said. I didn't get there. I'm getting there. I always will be. December brought unbearable heat. Eleanor and Adrian spent Christmas at his family's house in the Cotswolds. It was a warm, loud, affectionate family. Everything Eleanor's family never was. She felt welcomed in a way that frightened and warmed at the same time. Are you going to be my daughter-in-law? Adrian's mother asked while they helped in the kitchen. I think so, if he doesn't change his mind. That boy has loved you since the first time he talked about you. I saw it in his eyes. Mothers always know. Eleanor hugged the woman, emotional. She was gaining not just a partner, but a family. Roots. Belonging. On New Year's Eve, Adrian took her back to that viewpoint overlooking the Thames. The same place where months ago he'd almost crossed boundaries. But now everything was different. Everything was different. Remember this view? He asked. How could I forget? That day I almost ruined everything, almost scared you. But you didn't. Because you were patient with me, like I tried to be with you. Adrian knelt. Eleanor's eyes widened. We already said yes. I know, but I want to do this properly. He took a small box from his pocket. Eleanor Santos, you taught me that love isn't possession. It's space. It's freedom. It's choosing to stay every day, not because you have to, but because you want to. Will you marry me for real, with a party, signed papers, everything? Tears streamed down her face. Yes. 1,000 times yes. The ring was simple, delicate, perfect. They kissed while fireworks exploded in the city below, celebrating not just the turn of the year, but the real beginning of a new life. But the most important moment of that night wasn't the proposal. It was afterward, when they returned to her flat and Eleanor showed Adrian her most recent painting. It was her, whole. Not half in light and half in shadow, not disappearing, not returning, just being, complete, radiant, alive. It's you, Adrian said, emotional. It's who I always was. I just needed time to find her. They made love slowly, with the intimacy of those who aren't in a hurry, because they know they have the rest of their lives. Afterward, lying in the dark, Adrian asked, Are you afraid? Of what? Of getting married. Again. After everything. Eleanor thought about the question. A year ago, the answer would be yes. But now? No, because this time I'm not losing myself in someone. I'm finding myself beside someone. Is it different? It's everything. The last day of December was for planning. Eleanor and Adrian decided to marry in April, in a small, intimate ceremony. Just family and close friends. Nothing ostentatious, nothing false, just true. And honeymoon? Sophie asked, excited about her maid of honor role. Tokyo, Eleanor said. We're going to an art fair there, mixing business and pleasure. Classic, you two. In therapy, Eleanor talked about the engagement. How do you feel? The therapist asked. Scared, but happy. Is it possible to feel both? Not only possible, but healthy. It means you're conscious. Conscious of what? That happiness isn't absence of fear. It's courage to live despite it. Eleanor took that phrase home and painted. A new series was being born, she felt. Not about disappearance or return, about presence, about choice, about mature and conscious love. January brought torrential rains. The city flooded, traffic stopped, but Eleanor felt light. She spent the month finishing works for the Tate exhibition, now scheduled for May. It would be her biggest show yet, 30 works, spanning her entire artistic journey. Adrian helped when he could, but respected when she needed to be alone. This balance between presence and space was what made it work. Neither suffocated the other. Each had their life, their passions, their moments. And when they met, it was because they wanted to, not because they needed to. Do you think we'll be happy? Eleanor asked one rainy night lying on her sofa. I think we'll try. Every day. And some days we'll fail, but we'll keep trying. That's not very romantic. It's realistic. And reality is more romantic than fantasy. Eleanor kissed his forehead, grateful for having found someone who understood that true love wasn't a fairy tale. It was work. It was choice. It was daily construction. February was a month of preparations. Simple invitations were sent. Sophie organized a combined kitchen and lingerie shower because you need both. Thomas offered his studio for the ceremony. Among the canvases that saw you born as an artist. Adrian was nervous but happy. Eleanor was calm but anxious. Everything seemed surreal and perfectly real at the same time. But the eve of the wedding brought a surprise. Richard called. Hi, Elle. Richard, everything okay? Yes, I saw on Instagram you're getting married. I am. Tomorrow. Silence on the other end. I wanted to wish you happiness, truly, without resentment. Thank you. That means a lot. And apologize for everything I wasn't, for everything I should have been. Richard, Eleanor felt tears burn. We did the best we could at that moment, and that's okay. You're going to be happy. I know it. You too. When they hung up, Eleanor felt a deep peace. The past was healed. The present was alive. The future was open. The wedding day dawned with impossible blue sky. April gifted perfect temperature, gentle breeze, generous but not aggressive sun. Thomas's studio was transformed. White flowers everywhere, simple chairs aligned, Eleanor's paintings on the walls as silent witnesses of her journey. Eleanor woke early at Sophie's flat where she'd spent the night. Her friend was already awake, making coffee and crying. You haven't even started getting ready and I'm already like this. Sophie wiped tears. Imagine when I see you dressed. Stop crying or I'll cry too and ruin the makeup. But it was a lie. Eleanor was already crying. Happy tears, frightened tears, grateful tears. Tears of someone who couldn't believe this day had finally come. The dress was simple. White linen, straight cut, no shine or exaggerations. Natural flowers in her loose hair, light makeup. Eleanor looked at herself in the mirror, and for the first time in her life, she completely liked what she saw. Not because she was beautiful, she was, but because she was whole. Are you ready? Sophie asked. I was born ready. I just needed time to realize it. The ceremony began at 4 in the afternoon. There were only 30 people, family, close friends, some important people from the art world. Thomas would conduct the ceremony by the couple's choice. When Eleanor entered the studio, holding a simple bouquet of daisies, she saw Adrian waiting. He wore a navy blue suit, no tie, slightly messy hair. He was nervous, hands trembling, eyes shining. But when he saw her, his entire face lit up. It was the look of someone seeing everything they always wanted, of someone who knows they're making the right choice. Eleanor walked slowly, savoring each step. It wasn't her father walking her. She walked alone, because she'd learned that only she could give herself. When she reached Adrian's side, he held her hand and whispered, "You're beautiful. You too." Thomas began speaking, but Eleanor barely heard. She was absorbed in Adrian, in the way he looked at her, in the solidity of his hand, in the certainty of his presence. It wasn't burning passion from a film. It was something deeper, recognition, as if two souls who always knew each other had finally met. "Eleanor and Adrian have chosen to write their own vows," Thomas said. "Eleanor," she breathed deeply and began. "Adrian, 2 years ago I was a lost woman, invisible, disappearing inside my own life. You didn't save me, I saved myself. But you saw me, really saw me, and you taught me that love isn't prison, it's freedom, it's not dependence, it's choice. Every day I wake up and choose you, not because I need to, but because I want to, and I'll keep choosing every single day for the rest of my life." Adrian wiped away a discreet tear. "Eleanor, you taught me that to love is also to release, that presence isn't suffocation, that together doesn't mean stuck. You make me want to be better without demanding I change. You make me feel seen without exposing me. You're the bravest woman I know, and I promise every day to give you space to fly, knowing you'll always come back." There was no ring to exchange. They'd been wearing them since the proposal. Just a kiss, long, tender, true. People applauded, but Eleanor barely noticed. She was too busy feeling. The party was intimate. Simple food, good wine, live music played by a musician friend of Adrian's. People talked, laughed, danced. Eleanor circulated among everyone, happy, present, until Richard arrived. She saw him standing at the entrance, hesitant. He wasn't invited, but he wasn't an intruder either. He was part of her story, even if painful. "I came to bring this." He extended a wrapped package. "I know I shouldn't be here, but it's okay. Come in." Richard entered, greeted Adrian with a respectful handshake. The two men measured each other briefly, without hostility, just recognition. Then Richard left, leaving the gift. Inside was a framed painting, a photo of Eleanor painting taken by Richard years ago when she was still at university. Behind it, a message. "You were always an artist. Sorry for not seeing. R." Eleanor cried. Adrian hugged her. "Is everything okay?" "Yes. Everything's perfect." The night progressed in laughter and stories. Sophie made a moving speech about friendship and overcoming. Adrian's mother told embarrassing stories from his childhood. Thomas toasted to art that heals and transforms. When the party ended, it was past midnight. Eleanor and Adrian returned to her flat. They weren't in a hurry to live together. They wanted to do things at the right time. "How do you feel?" Adrian asked, helping remove the flowers from her hair. "Like I've completed a cycle, not finished, completed." "What's the difference?" "Finishing is ending. Completing is being ready to start again." They made love slowly, with the intimacy of those who don't need to prove anything. Afterward, lying in the dark, Eleanor said, "Thank you." "For what?" "For waiting, for not giving up, for loving me the right way." "There's no right way. There's our way." Eleanor fell asleep in his arms, for the first time in her life completely at peace. Not because she had a husband, not because she had success, but because she finally had herself. May arrived with autumn consolidated. The Tate Modern exhibition opened on a rainy Wednesday. The gallery was packed, over 200 people competing for space to see Eleanor's 30 works. The complete series was there, from Woman at the Window to the most recent works, showing the evolution of an artist and a woman. It was her story bleeding through the walls, visible to everyone. Adrian was beside her, discreet but present. Sophie distributed catalogues. Thomas talked with important curators. Everything seemed like a dream, but the most important moment came when a woman of about 30 approached Eleanor. Her eyes were red. "Can I talk to you?" "Of course." "I came here because I read about your story, about how you left a marriage where you were invisible, and I'm living that now, for 5 years, and I don't know how to leave." Eleanor held the woman's hand. "You've already taken the first step, you noticed, but I'm afraid I was too every day, but you know what I learned, that the fear of staying was greater than the fear of going. What if I regret it? Maybe you will. But you'll regret it alive, not dead inside, the woman cried. Eleanor hugged her. They didn't know each other, but they recognized each other, two survivors of the same silent war. When the woman left, Eleanor felt something profound: purpose. Her art wasn't just expression, it was communication, it was healing. It was hope for those still trapped where she once was. The exhibition was an absolute success. Critics spoke of impressive artistic maturity. Collectors fought over works. A New York gallery offered exclusive representation in the United States. But Eleanor didn't let herself go crazy. She celebrated, thanked, but kept her feet on the ground. Because she'd learned that success was important, but wasn't everything. That applause was good, but didn't fill voids. That in the end, what mattered was waking up every day and liking who she saw in the mirror. April returned, bringing the first wedding anniversary. Eleanor and Adrian finally lived together in a larger flat in Shoreditch, with a room transformed into a studio and windows overlooking the entire city. Eleanor was 4 months pregnant. It wasn't planned, but it was celebrated. Adrian cried when he found out. Eleanor painted an entire series about motherhood and fear and hope. "Do you think we'll be good parents?" she asked one afternoon, lying in the balcony hammock. "I think we'll try, and fail, and succeed, and keep trying. Like everything in life. Like everything in life." Sophie was engaged too, to a professor she'd met at a lecture. "Everyone's getting married," she joked. "Even me, who swore I never would." Thomas continued at the studio, training new artists, changing lives. "You were my greatest work," he said once to Eleanor. "No," she corrected. "You just helped me find myself." Richard married Anna in a big ceremony in Edinburgh. He sent photos to Eleanor with a note. "I learned from my mistakes. Thank you for being patient." She replied, "Be happy, truly." Eleanor's career exploded. Exhibitions on 3 continents, works in permanent collections of important museums, interviews, lectures, books about her art. But she maintained a simple routine: wake early, paint, lunch with Adrian, paint more, dinner, sleep. Success didn't change who she was. One October afternoon, with her belly already round at 7 months, Eleanor was painting when she felt something strange, a sharp pain in her abdomen. Then another. Adrian was at work. She called, trying not to panic. "Love, I think something's wrong." Adrian arrived in 15 minutes. He took her to hospital. The doctors examined, did an ultrasound, and finally said, "Everything's fine, just premature labor. We'll control it. But you need complete bed rest." Rest meant not painting, not working, not doing anything except rest. For Eleanor, who'd built her identity through art, it was almost a sentence. But Adrian was there, every day, reading to her, talking, just being present. And Eleanor learned something new, that sometimes doing nothing was doing the most important thing. "I love you," she said one of those afternoons. "I love you too." "No, listen, I really love you, not because you saved me or completed me, but because you let me be me, and that's the rarest love there is." Adrian kissed her forehead. "You let me be me too, and that's why it works." 2 months later, in December, Clara was born. 3 kilos, 200 grams of perfection. Dark hair, eyes that hadn't defined color yet. Powerful cry. Eleanor held her for the first time and felt something she'd never experienced. Absolute, unconditional, frightening love. It was different from love for Adrian. More primitive, fiercer, more vulnerable. "She has your eyes," Adrian said, emotional. "And your stubbornness. Look at how strongly she feeds." They laughed, cried, kissed. There in that hospital room were the 3 of them. A family. Imperfect, real, alive. Clara was almost 3. She spoke complete sentences, painted the walls when no one was looking, laughed with her belly. She was a happy, secure, loved child. Eleanor was at the studio, finishing a work for her next exhibition. Clara played on the floor, making castles with blocks. Adrian worked in the office but would come for dinner. Life had routine, but it was good routine, chosen, built. Nothing of empty automatism. Each day had intention. "Mummy, look." Clara showed a drawing of 3 stick figures. "It's us." Eleanor took the drawing and felt tears burn. 3 people, together, whole. "It's beautiful, my love. Are you crying? From happy? Can you cry from happy?" "You can, and should." That night, after putting Clara to bed, Eleanor and Adrian sat on the balcony. The city shone below. Big Ben, illuminated, watched them from afar. "Are you happy?" Adrian asked. "I am, and you?" "Completely. Even with the mess, the tiredness, the nappies, the lack of time. Especially because of that, because it's real, it's ours." Eleanor rested her head on his shoulder. "You know what I realized?" "What?" "That happiness isn't a destination, it's a path. We don't arrive at it. We build it every day with small and big choices. And you're building well. We are building well." They stayed there in comfortable silence while the city breathed and night advanced. Eleanor thought about everything she'd lived. The marriage that failed, the pain that woke her, the art that saved her, the love that found her, the daughter who transformed her. She thought about the woman she was 2 years ago, lost, invisible, dimmed, and the woman she was now, strong, visible, lit. And Eleanor looked. She crossed the darkness, bled, cried, broke, but also got up, painted, loved, was reborn. It wasn't a fairy tale happy ending. It was a conscious beginning of real life, with challenges, fears, doubts, but also with love, courage, purpose. She looked at Adrian, who looked at her, their fingers intertwined. They didn't need to say anything. They already knew. They had chosen to stay. Every day they chose, and they would keep choosing for the rest of their lives. Because true love isn't a promise. It's daily renewal. And Eleanor had finally learned to renew. Not just love, but herself. She was the light she once forgot. And now, finally, she was the light she would never let go out again.